So we're going to be talking today about differentiated instruction, as I mentioned earlier. I wanted to present myself, of course. Some of you I know that, and I've already met. Many of you I have never seen before. My name is Carolyn Murphy. I am the PED consultant for the Centre de Service Scolaire de Laval for ESL, and I also take care, some of you might know the Parcours de Formation Axé sur l'Emploi. That is also part of what I take care of. And ESL is about 25% of my task. The intention of the course today, I want to clarify the importance of applying differentiation in the classroom. Differentiation is something that we've been speaking about more and more. And those of you who've been around for a little while, most probably you will have heard some of what I'm going to be sharing today. Some of it comes from the ministry directly. A lot of information does. But what I want to do today is I want to give you a real idea of the difference between differentiation, flexibility, adaptation, modification, how you can do it in the classroom. And in the last part of our course together today, our workshop together, you're actually going to, in teams, take an activity and modify it for it to become in different levels. So it's going to be super interesting to do, and you'll be able to leave with an example of something that is, I'm modifying an activity for my students. What grades are we from? I know that you're all high school. I know that some of you are adaptation. Is it possible to maybe just tell me in the chat what grades you're teaching? I told you it was going to be interactive. I'm getting you guys busy. Okay, so I see Sec 3, 4, Sec 2 regular and tremplin. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. So we have a good variety everywhere. Excellent, super. Okay, so let's continue. So our plan as per se today is to speak about differentiation. What can we differentiate when we're in the classroom? The best practices that we can apply, as well as I mentioned before, an actual application activity. When we speak of differentiation, 10 of you answered. Extra work. I don't know if you've ever used these Mentimeters. They're really fun to use in the classroom when you ask the students a question and you want their opinions about something, because it's free. It's menti.com. It's free, and it allows you to get the opinions of the students in an anonymous way. So when I asked you, how do you apply differentiation in your classroom? Well, some of you said it was extra work, and the bigger words means it came out more than once. Different lexical levels, formative assessments, multi-level tasks, students explaining, caring about levels, absolutely, modification, and the needs of the students. So that's what you said with regards to differentiation in your classroom. Can you still see my screen where it says the plan? Okay, good, excellent. So if I continue, I wanted you to know that there is an ESL website that is available to you. I've been sharing it with the teachers a couple of times. Everything that I have and that I'm going to be sharing with you over the next couple of hours, the information can be found on our website, and you can access the website via the Bureau Virtuel of the Centre de Service Scolaire. If I bring this over here, can you see the Centre de Service Scolaire now? Hey, this is working really well today. Excellent. So when we log in to the Centre de Service Scolaire under the Resources tab, when you look at the Ressources de vos CP, you will see that you have on the side here the different lists, and Anglais is there. And when you click on Anglais here, it brings you to our website page where you have elementary and secondary. Eventually, we're going to have new teachers, and eventually I'm also going to have adaptation specifically. And when you click on secondary, here you have all kinds of tools, everything that I'm sharing with you, triangulation for collection and observation of information. And I had mentioned in the invitation to this course that I wanted you to look at this video. Did anybody have a chance to take a look at it? By yes or no? No? Okay, so if you want information on planning and the expectations for the end of the school year, as well as information on triangulation, how to collect data, this is the video that you want to be looking at, and it's available on the website, okay? So that's with regards to that. And I might be coming back to it once in a while, but I did want you to know. I sent you the presentation in the invitation, so you have the PDF of this document. When you open the PDF and you look at it, all of the links that you click on, or all the places where you see either underlining like this or arrows, if you click, you will automatically attain that spot or that place where I want you to be going to, okay? So differentiation, we're going to go directly into the subject right away. Oop. Do you guys hear what I hear? Hold on a sec. Something started, I don't know why. Just a second.
We don't hear it.
You don't hear it? Okay, because I had a video that started playing. Just one moment. I'm just going to stop this here. Maybe. Okay. I clearly. Okay. So I'm going to, if you don't hear it, it doesn't matter as long as we see the slide. So when the reason why is because if you click on this, it will bring you to the video that speaks of universal design for learning. When we talk about our students and we talk about differentiation, when we looked at the Mentimeter, you gave me a lot of information of different ways that you perceive differentiation in the classroom. One of the simple ways of explaining differentiation or comparing differentiation is to look at this slide here that we have in front of you that shows, whoops.
We don't see your screen.
You don't see my screen? Oh, thank you. Okay. So when we look at this slide here, when we're not considering the differences of our students, and we need to understand that each student is different, we just have them this way, as we can see on the first picture. We're not taking them into consideration. When we're adapting for a student, we're just taking building blocks and trying to help him get to the top of where he needs to be able to fit in with the rest of the group. But when we're doing universal design for learning, or when we're thinking about differentiation, what we're doing is we're taking the fence off completely, and we're adapting what we do and what the students are looking at or doing to be able to see the whole show and to get to what they need to have and what they need to succeed, okay? Because at the end of the day, the objective of teachers and all of you, I know that, is to give the students the success that they need. Which brings me to an important point and something that I want to make sure that you all hear from me. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being there for our students. I can't explain how important you all are. I can't explain how important what you are doing is. And even if sometimes you're trying something and it works one time and it doesn't work the next time, and it works with one group and it doesn't work with a different group or with one student in particular, what you're doing is fine. And at least you're trying to give them what they need. So congratulations and thank you for that. As I mentioned before, differentiated instruction, there was a training session actually that was given by the Ministry of Education a couple of weeks ago, sometime in February, with regards to differentiation. They had documents that were available in French. Not all of their documents were translated. There was one that was translated. If you click on this picture, you will find that document, which explains differentiation, flexibility, modification, and so on. And it is also available on our ESL website that I showed you earlier, okay? So that is a lot of where a lot of this information will be coming from. There's also 2 videos on our website that I will invite you to take a look at when you get a chance. My objective was to give you all of the tools in one place. So on the PDF that you receive, everything is there. I want you to know that they're there, and then I want to bring it a bit further. But I didn't want to waste 10 minutes this morning on just watching videos when you guys can do that on your own if you wish to go a bit further and get a bit more information on the Universal Design for Learning and on differentiation instruction. Is that okay for everyone? You agree with me on that? Super. So when we talk about differentiation, one of the important things is the way that you perceive your students. How do we react to students who are disturbing? I think that when you are in adaptation groups or when you're in special groups, or even when you have regular groups, you need to stop and think when the students are misbehaving, is it because they have learning disabilities? Is it because the planning is not good? Is it because we didn't take into account the students and what they need specifically when we were planning? Because it does, and somebody in the Mentimeter earlier said, it brings additional work, and that is true. But if you take the time to do that additional work, or if you take the time to plan it ahead of time, you'll see when we do it later, when you take a learning activity, and that when you decide to do that learning activity, you stop right away and you ask yourself the question, okay, I know that I have a group that is stronger. So what exercise can I add to this activity for the ones that are going to be finished before everybody else? I'm planning it when I plan my activity. And then you can ask yourself, what if I have a questionnaire? What questions could I pull from this questionnaire or remove to make sure that the students are okay? So if I'm asking myself those questions when I'm planning, it doesn't actually become additional work when I'm teaching. It just becomes a question of thinking. Every time I choose an activity, it becomes kind of like a routine of thinking. I know that for this person or for this student, I'm going to need to give him a word bank, for example, or something to that effect. And we'll see the tricks in a moment. We know that students need to be loved. They need to find their space, feel listened to, accepted, secure. And we as teachers need to see them as a richness, and we need to believe in them, basically, is the bottom line. And they are students. Sometimes they are, as we say in French, tannant, and there are all kinds of different people. But at the same time, we all understand that teaching is a vocation, and that in our situation right now, we have students that are challenged in their everyday life. We don't know their stories. We don't know everything that's going on behind closed doors. But when they come to school, tell yourselves that for a lot of them, it's their safe place. And I'm sure that I don't necessarily need to say that to you. You understand it and you know it already, most probably, okay? If we continue, what can we differentiate? On a daily basis, there's 4 things that we can actually think about differentiating. We can differentiate with regards to the content itself. For example, if we find a text, and you know that there are LESs that exist, learning and evaluation situations that exist, that already have the 3 levels or 2 levels of texts, so that when you're teaching an assignment or teaching to the students, you can actually take a text with different levels of difficulty based on the students that are in front of you. That's one example. You can differentiate the process as well. So the activities will be offered to the students with a variety of challenges and a variety of different levels of support. For example, if in your classroom you have some students that are strong and some students that have more difficulties, you should be giving the stronger ones activities with a little bit more challenge. And while those stronger students are doing those activities, it allows you to have more time to be working with the ones that have more difficulties. You can also sometimes pair them up together. Somebody who's stronger can be helping somebody who has more difficulties. So in a case like this, it's the actual processes that are being differentiated. We can also differentiate the productions. And this is something that people don't always think about, but it is also very interesting. If a student is not comfortable, for example, with an oral presentation, you could give them the opportunity to show that they understand what they're learning by making a presentation, a poster, a mural, maybe a letter, maybe explaining to you. We sometimes think that that's not something that we can do, but it is. So don't hesitate when a student is not comfortable with one way of doing it, allow them the choice to do it in a different way, completely different way. And sometimes we think, hi, Karima,
sorry, I got in trouble. Thank you so much. Sorry.
That's okay. Welcome. Yeah. Nice to have you. So just remember that it is okay to allow the students to do it in different ways. And then finally, we say that the environment itself can be differentiated as well. The moments when the teacher offers help can be different from one student to the other. So keep that in mind as well. Those are the 4 different things that you could be thinking about differentiating when you're dealing with your students. Okay, so do these terms ring a bell? Flexibility, adaptation, and modification. I'm looking around. Who has never heard about these words? Is anybody? Good, I'm happy to hear that. So when we talk about these 3 things, we're going to take a look at them a little bit more in detail. Flexibility. There's a document on our ESL website if ever you want to have all of the details with regards to this. But when we look at flexibility, adaptation, and modification, it all starts from all of the students are allowed to have some sort of best practices and adaptation. So before you think of changing anything else, these here, the best practices, are things that we should be applying in our classroom for all students all the time. And we can change it and modify it depending on the needs that the students have. They don't have to have a plan d'intervention to be allowed to have these best practices. They don't need to be on a transition plan either. All of your students are allowed to have this. So of course we say be a model yourselves. You need to be speaking English. Do a lot of modeling of the tasks. Sometimes students look like they don't know what is expected of them, or sometimes students will not react at all, or students will refuse to do an activity. Well, actually the thing is that they don't understand what they have to do. So if they don't understand what they have to do, we need to think about backing up a step and maybe modeling the tasks and giving them examples, especially if it's writing tasks. Well, give them an example of a letter that you want them to write to a grandma. Well, let them fill out the rest of the letter, but give them examples so that they can model off of that as well. So when we say modeling, there's the oral part, there's the written part, there's the activities. Every element of modeling is there too. Of course, we encourage the students to speak English, and we provide as much visual support as possible. We think sometimes that students are not understanding at all simply because they're not responding when we speak to them in English. But actually, if you have posters and if you have functional language in the classroom, or if you have a binder, each student has their little binder with the functional language in it. When you ask a question, if they're not answering verbally, bring them to answer by pointing to what they would like to say. Because if they are pointing to what they would like to say, they're proving to you that one, they understand what you have asked of them, and that they understand what they would like to say to you. And that brings them eventually to go over the little hump of being shy. They gain confidence slowly but surely, and you are collecting, you know, when we say collecting traces, well, in oral interaction, if you're speaking to them and they're not answering you, but they are pointing to what they would like to say to you, that is part of success in oral interaction. So you want to be keeping traces on that as well. We say in the best practices as well that teaching strategies for oral interaction, reading and writing, the MEQ, when they launched the differentiated instruction, and this year more than ever, on their website, they have a complete section that is attached to strategies. So if you click on my PDF, you will get to this page, And if you go on our ESL website, you have access to this page too. And if you look here in the resources, there's all kinds of different tools that you can find, posters, mini cards, processes, learning strategies, and so on and so forth that you have access to and that are very interesting, okay? So it's directly on the ministry website and you have access to it, and I put them on our ESL website as well. Good? You're back to my PowerPoint. You all see that on my screen? Okay, good. We say provide frequent feedback. When we give feedback to students, it should be as close as possible to the moment when the activity was done. If a student, especially students that have adaptation needs, if they are doing an activity and weeks go by or a week and a half goes by before you give them feedback on that activity, they don't even remember that they did that activity. So try to make sure whenever possible that you are able to give them on the spot feedback. If you're walking next to them and you're seeing them do an assignment and it's good, tell them right away. If something needs to be modified, ask them to modify it right away. If they're putting it in practice right away, the chances that they remember it are stronger than if they get the information only a week and a half later. And when we give feedback, it should not be only at the final evaluation. What we want to be evaluating in our students is progression of learning. For example, the first time that you do an activity with them, you can have oral interaction or you can explain to them what is expected and show it to them. They try to do it, you give them feedback. The next time that you see them, you do it again. Repetition and repetition and repetition, so that at the end, when you get to an evaluation type activity, they will have tried it several times. And even if it's an evaluation type activity, you want to be giving them feedback, okay? All the time, feedback, feedback, feedback. That's what we need to be thinking about. We need, oh, I have a little typo here. We need to establish rules. You have all established rules in your classrooms for sure. Routines as well. We don't think about it, but especially special education students or students with special needs, they need to have a routine. So every day when they walk into the classroom on the board, it should be written exactly what's going to happen today. And it should be almost identical from 1 week to the next with the information. That way, when they come to English class, the stress of not knowing what we're going to do is removed. That anxiety is taken away from them. They know exactly what's going to be done. You can also use timers to tell them. You're teaching them how to learn the time or whatever. If you tell them in 10 minutes, this activity will be over, it also diminishes the anxiety for the students. Give the instructions one at a time, give one instruction at a time. Another thing that is difficult for students in special education or when I say special education, I'm also thinking in varied classrooms. You might have one student who needs to get the instructions one at a time. So it's important to do that. And invite students to make prediction. Ask them what they think. Ask them what is coming. What do they think is going to be happening? And they're very proud when they're able to give an answer. Okay. So flexibility. Before I showed you FAM, you know what flexibility is. I'm just reminding you of these main points because I want you to remember that flexibility is everybody. Everybody is allowed to flexibility. So it's for all students. It allows students to follow their interests, to make choices. It helps them make optimal progress in developing their competencies. Activities, learning, and evaluation situations must be planned. Do you have any examples of, in English as per se, for example, in C1, C2, or C3, what are examples of flexibility? Does anybody have examples? You can either raise your hand by at the bottom of your screen, or we're not a big group. You can just turn your microphone on. Anybody? Or you can write it in the chat if you want. No? Thinking about C1, C2, or C3? Okay, I'll play the game. I'll give you some examples, and then for the next one, I'll make you work a little bit harder. When we're talking about flexibility, in C1, you can be providing word banks or sentence starters. We're in flexibility here. You don't need a plan d'intervention to be doing that. So think about that for your students. C1, C2, and C3, graphic organizers. Those are used by many, and they're very, very useful. In C2, make sure that the resources are available. Bilingual dictionary, language posters, functional language as well. In C3, you can provide alternate themes for writing tasks. If your task is to have them write a letter, well, if I don't, and this is an example that I heard one day where the teacher was asking the students to write a letter to their grandmother. And there was one student who was there who refused to do the activity. And the teacher was arguing with the student to make them do the letter to their grandmother. And the student refused. She found out later that the child's grandmother had passed away not long ago. Well, maybe if she had asked the question, or if she had offered the choice to write a letter to I don't know, to a sports star that they like, well, the letter would have been done within 5 minutes because that was in the interests of the student. So that's something that we can do. And encouraging peer editing. So encouraging peer editing, have each of the students correct each other. Well, you're still in flexibility, and that's okay to do. If we continue to adaptation, okay, when we get into adaptation, here what you need to know is that the student, to be able to have an adaptation measure in his classroom, it has to come from the plan d'intervention. There have to be discussions that are had with the team, and they have to have provided exactly what it is that they want to have adaptation on. So it's not something that you just decide one morning that you want the students to have adaptation. It applies to students who have handicaps, social maladjustments, or learning difficulties. It can be added to flexibility to those who need it, and it's required to allow the students the competency development and to demonstrate learning. So in other words, if it's something that they absolutely need to be able to succeed, like a word cube, like if they need to have, sometimes it's the shells on their ears to be able to be quiet. If it's something that they need to be able to succeed, it should be part of the plan d'intervention, and it should become an adaptation measure, okay? And when we talk about adaptation, here we'll give you a few examples as well. It doesn't modify what is expected. That's one thing that we need to keep in mind. And it's determined within the framework of the plan. I do want to mention too, with regards to adaptation, when we're in flexibility and when we're in adaptation, if the student is in Sec 1, we're still doing Sec 1 work, right? Okay. We're not taking a grade 3 workbook for a Sec 1 student. We keep the Sec 1 program and we adapt based on the student's needs. That is very, very important, okay? So here are the examples that we have. In adaptation, you could seat the student strategically with the posters very close to him or next to a helpful student. You can provide extra time for students to organize their thoughts. So when you're giving them more time, you're in the adaptation section. Somebody could be reading the questions for the student to help them. If the student is unable to read on their own, you will provide them with somebody who can read the questions for them. You can encourage them to use a ruler to focus. So if they're reading in the same way that sometimes we will put our fingers, a student who is in adaptation mode can use a ruler to help them read each of the lines that they need to be reading. And here we will definitely be providing model texts. So samples of what it is specifically that is expected from them. They're basically going to be changing a couple of words, but they should be able to almost copy the text from what has been presented. Is that good for everyone? I'm going fast in these because I know that a lot of you have already seen these things, but I do want to take the time to go over them with you. Modification. Now, when we speak about modification, before I even look at the slide, I want to take a moment to speak to you about modification, because modification, just to give you an example, a student who has a modified report card and who goes to get, for example, a driver's permit for a scooter, they could be limited in their driver's permit, because if they're in modification, it represents the fact that they're probably unable to read, might not be able to read signs, might not be, and are having specific difficulties. So before, and it's not a teacher who will wake up one morning and say, I've done flexibility, we've done adaptation, it's not enough, we're modifying this kid's report card. No, okay? It is a process that has to be, you have to have taken notes over several years to be proving that the student needs the modification. This is how it's supposed to happen. And a student who has a modified report card, and I can hear you guys thinking in your heads, and I'll explain to you what happens, but now I'm explaining what should happen. A student who has a modified report card in French will not automatically have a modified report card in English. You probably have in your classrooms students who speak English better than a lot of other people, and they have a modified report card in English. It should not happen that way. What should happen is that when a modified report card is declared for a student, the schools should be speaking with each of the teachers for each of the disciplines, for each of the competencies. And then we should identify and say, okay, this child needs a modified report card in math, but not in English and not in French. Or he needs a modified report card in math and in English, in French, but not in English. That's what should happen. What actually does happen is a lot of schools decide that a student is modified, they modify everything, and that's what happens to the students. So I'm asking you, please, when you see a student who is in your classroom and who you do not think they need a modified report card, speak to your principals, speak to the people that work with that student. We should get them off of the modified report card for English if you don't believe they need it, okay? That's really important. The other thing is that when we have, and this I'm gonna share the screen again because this is from the slide. This is one of the things that's really, really important to me, because I find that a lot of our students are losing out on what they're learning in English because they've been put on a modified report card, and that they might not even need that modified report card, is what I'm saying. When we talk about modification, we are actually modifying the QEP, the Quebec Education Program requirements. So they are made for students who are unable to meet the requirements for one or more school subjects. Prior analysis of the competency has to be done over a long period of time. Personalized expectations. So if I'm telling you that Paul has a modified report card, at the beginning of the school year, you as a teacher should pull out Paul's file, look at what he is capable of doing, look at the Quebec Education Program for his grade, and identify what he will be learning this year. You as a teacher are the one who decides what he will be learning from the Quebec Education Program during that school year. And then everything that he does during that school year is based on those things that you have chosen, okay? So if you have a group with 6 different students, you can probably say that they will all be doing more or less the same thing, but the elements are chosen based on the capacity of the student. The objective of a modified report card, and you've probably been told this, modified report card, students, they get from 60 to 80%. If you have chosen elements from the program of study, you have chosen elements that you know they will be able to do. So he should not fail because you have chosen the elements that they're able to do. And that little part at the beginning, I know that a lot of schools don't go through that. And I'm not blaming you, but they throw you into a classroom with a whole bunch of students. And then you find out sometime during the year that they're on a modified report card and you've been fighting to try to teach them the actual Quebec education program. But if you stop and you realize that they have a modified report card, everything stops. You choose some elements that you know they can succeed at and you want them to have successes, which is also the reason why we say they should be getting between 60 and 80%, because technically speaking, they're not strong enough to be on the regular program. If you're having students in your classroom and you're thinking to yourself, he should be getting 95 and I'm frustrated because I'm giving him 80, well, again, should he or she really be on the modified report card, okay? So that to me is very, very, very important, and it can be revised over time. Is that okay for everybody? Good, okay. So again, the decision is reviewed periodically. You don't just decide, it's a process, and the student may be on a modification in one discipline, but not in the others, as I've mentioned before. So what would we be doing in a case like this? A student who is on a modified report card, in C1, the student cannot find the words. You can provide them with the words that they need. You can allow less participation in oral interaction. It's okay. He's not or she's not able to do it. We will do that. We will remove difficult questions and reduce the number of questions from a certain activity. I know that in a 20-minute period, he can't do 12 questions, but he will be able to do 2 or 3. So you have that in here. You will provide easier texts. We're not just giving different levels, we're actually giving easier material. And we will allow the student to provide an oral text instead of a written copy. These are only examples, but in the best practices and in the tools that we have online, you have the whole list of a variety of different ways of doing it, okay? You as a professional teacher will choose, I've said this before, minimum of 60, maximum of 80, and it does have impacts on their elements, on other elements in life, and it should not be taken lightly. And again, please remember that it's not something that you decide on a sunny April morning that a student is going to have a modified report card. And actually, our school board in this year, with everything that's going on, they have requested that we try to not put students on modified report cards, because it's clear that right now, the students are not in a state where they're going to be able to, how will I say, we're not expecting students to be at the top of where they can be anyways right now. So because of that, we would suggest that it's not a time to be putting students on a modified report card, okay? If we look at the next element, is one of the most important things I'm going to say to you today, and it's the age cycle approach. Too many times, teachers who have students that are in Sec 1 or Sec 2, and I'm thinking somebody was with Tremplin as well in our group here today. The student is having difficulties in Sec 1 or Sec 2. So I turn around and I go get activities from the elementary school level. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable with the Quebec education program, and it's unacceptable in the school board. Think about it for a moment. If I'm 13 years old, do I want to be doing an activity where you're showing me ladybugs? I don't necessarily think so, okay? Or something that is bébé lala 8-year-old work. What we need to be doing is always referring back to the Quebec education program for the level of the student and adapting the activities to the level of the student. So again, as I mentioned earlier, if they're doing Sec 1 work, but they're at a grade 3 level, I will take my Sec 1 work and I will give them an easier text. And there are some that are available online. And what we're going to do in a bit, we're going to look at some examples of what can be done with regards to that. Okay? Is that okay for everybody? This is really, 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 really important because I know and I've seen it and I've heard it of teachers pulling out a workbook for grade 2 or grade 3 and giving it to a student who's in Sec 1. Well, balls and dogs and happy faces are not something that we should be giving to a student who is 12 or 13 years old. Think about what it does to their self-esteem, okay? Already we're telling them that they're not where they're supposed to be at. And on top of it, we're giving them dolls and little trucks in their learning activities. So we need to be very careful with regards to that, okay? So as a recap of this section, remember, as we said, flexibility is something that's available for all students and it's daily and you can do it whenever you want. Adaptation and modification are team decisions, but modification, you're actually modifying the report card and you're modifying the expectations. Whereas when you're doing adaptation, you're still teaching what's there. However, you're looking at it in a different way. Good? Yes? Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share in the, hold on a sec here. I'm going to share in the chat, and you simply click on that and you will come and post somewhere on the page what you have learned or what you find that's important to apply in your classroom based on what we have just seen. Even if it's something that you already knew, I'm fine with that. But in your opinion, what is very important to make sure that we apply in the classroom? You simply come and click somewhere and there's a T on the left of the page, zone de texte. You can come and you can put a text in the Jamboard. So yeah, possibly, yes. I'm gonna stop the share. Thank you for that one, Jeff. Okay, well, they're showing up now. We can see them. And what's fun about Jamboard is we see it live as it's happening. So yeah, go ahead and do that. Okay, so feedback, using subjects that suit their level and try to adapt to the abilities. Exactly. Peer editing, excellent. Provide more feedback, true. Good. Good. So what we're going to do, there's a break that's planned at this point. So thank you all for being back. As we come back, I just want to come back on the Jamboard that you guys have created and to show you in so little time everything that you've shared with me. Frequent feedback, provide visual support, peer editing, allow students to provide an oral text instead of written copy, provide more feedback, using the subjects that suit their level and try to adapt their abilities, provide more time, level appropriate visual support, easier texts, repetition, back to Quebec Education Program, and adapt the activity, provide different ways to demonstrate student understanding, establish routines, design lessons based on students' learning styles. You guys have amazing, it's great because it shows how much that you already knew, how much you've added to that, topics of interest, using different texts and progression of learning. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. I did also want to note, because to me, it's important to make links. Jamboard is something, Jeff, you're going off soon to teach an online class. Jamboard is one of the tools that's very interesting to use, easy to use. Again, when I provide activities for you, or when we do courses like this, my objective is to give you knowledge, but my objective is also to provide you with examples of tools that you can use in your classroom, again, to engage your students and to change the rhythm of an activity that you're doing. So that's fun. I love it. Thank you very, very much. So we're going to move on now. I'm going to share my screen to the next section. And in this next section, I'm first going to model for you, or I'm going to provide an example for you of a learning activity that has been already set up with different levels of learning, okay? I was very careful when I did that to make sure that I did not choose an activity that was using elementary school tools or activities. You may or may not be aware, but on the BV of the Commission Scolaire de Laval, ou Centre de Services Scolaires de Laval, sorry, if you click on Exchanges, Échange, and then you click on Communauté, there's a list of communities and you have access to ESL secondary, okay? If you try this and do not have access to it, let me know, and I will make sure that you get access to it. Under this, you have a whole series of activities, LESs of all different varieties and different tools that you can be using. And a lot of them are very fun. And there's one section that's differentiated LES for special education only. And these activities, the one that we're going to be looking at today is pulled from here. It's called Shark versus Man. And right away, you can tell that this is not something that was provided for elementary school students. It's something that is provided for high school students. The theme, the subject matter is more mature than something that would be for elementary school students. So what I have done is I've taken some tools from here, Shark versus Man. And when you open it up, I opened it to show you on my screen that there's a reading booklet for level 1, level 2, and level 3. There's a student booklet for level 1, level 2, level 3. And there's a teacher's guide for the multi-level version, which allows you to be able to prepare your lesson plan based on the 3 levels of the students that you might have in your classroom. So if I take you to the teacher's guide, okay, so this is the picture of the teacher's guide. On one of the pages, I hope you can see it. Is it clear enough that you can see there's class 1, class 2? Okay, good. So you have, this is an activity that is planned over 5 or 6 classes of about 60 minutes each. In the teacher's guide, of course, it tells you what that you're going to be doing in each of the activities. And it gives you a little bit of information with regards to 1A, 1B, 1C, different levels of vocabulary, and so on and so forth. I think we have a comment. I have done this. Okay, Bessie, you did it with your groups last year, and it was fun. It looked interesting at least.
It was amazing because I was able to give them the different, for each student, I was able to do different levels.
Yes.
So it was unreal. I was doing TSL last year at Adaptation Scolaire at Georges Vanier, and they absolutely loved it. I think I still have, maybe I have kept some stuff on that.
That's cool. Excellent. Really nice.
And a lot of participation. A lot of students were really engaged.
Has anybody else in this group here today ever taken one of these activities and used it as it is, adapted like that for the multi-levels? I'm thinking of Jeff, Gianfranco, since you have, and Rosa, yes?
I'm using the energy drink one.
Okay, cool.
I'm using it right now, and it's really, I can see the difference. Well, it's not, you know, it's like Sec 1 to Sec 4, but still, like I have Sec 1 and Adaptation Scolaire, and I have Sec 2, but like it does work, and it's really fun. And since, you know, they actually, I used it because I see the students are kind of obsessed with energy drinks.
Yes.
Like Monsters after lunch, they always have those. Crazy. So I thought it would be interesting. Yeah. And the shock in their face when I you know, I name all of these facts, it's pretty fascinating, and they actually are engaged. So it was really fun. I liked it.
So what you're saying is mature subject matter. Sounds like I'm going to be showing a rated R TV show or something, but it's more mature than elementary school level. It is subject matter. Relatable. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you're adapting the level of knowledge to the capacities of the students. And again, when they're all doing the same activity, but with levels that are adapted to them, it's a good way of challenging the ones that are not as good to work a bit harder, and the ones that are stronger are still advancing. And to me, any student in your classroom, you take them from where they are now and you're pulling them up. So as long as we're pulling them up, if they don't get as far as the ones who are farther, it's okay, we're pulling them up. And that's what we need to be thinking about. And especially this year until the end of our school year, what a great opportunity to just say, guys, let's just let go and bring them as far as we can in the current context. So that's definitely, thank you for sharing that, Ikram. Ikram, yes. So in the differentiation chart that is provided in this teacher guide, you see here in class 1, level 1, level 2, and level 3. So the information is there already for you, and it identifies for you exactly what you're going to be doing with each of the levels and each of the students, okay? These are activities that are already there. So what we would do, for example, activating prior knowledge, the activity would probably be a bit different from one to the other. And then in activity C, there would be a true or false quiz, whereas in level 2, okay, here it's the same quiz, but there's other activities that when you do them, the activities are varied a little bit from one student to the other. Here I have an example for you. One activity, 3 different levels. I didn't put all 3 because it would have been too much on the screen, but here you can see that we say activity 1A, watch the video, which title is best. For the first level of students, we just say, choose one, The Ultimate Predator, The True Nature of Sharks, or Man and Sharks, Natural Enemies. And then in the level 3, and level 2, of course, was somewhere between the two, watch the video and what subjects are mentioned. So you see that we're taking them a bit further. The sentences are longer and there's more material, and they need to check off which ones are being covered in there, okay? So this is one example of that. Another example of that is they had a writing activity or writing task that they had to do in this activity. So before reading, we were asking them questions, and in level 1, we were saying, what do you think the text is about? Check 1. So it was just a checklist of elements that it could have been about. And how do you feel about sharks? We provide them with a word bank to help them decide what they think about sharks. So they could have to look up these words. You could provide an activity where you're working with them to find the meaning of these words. And then while reading, write 8 words that are new to you, and they will do it here. In the activity, the same activity, so they're doing this at the same time for level 3, before you reading, what do you think the text is about? Same question, but here we're having them tell us, because they're at a level where they should be able to make a sentence, short as it may be, long as it may be, but we're bringing them a bit further. And how do people feel about sharks? So we're not giving them the word bank, we're asking them to provide us with what they think with regards to sharks. Is that good for everyone? Okay, so in the next slide, I'm going to show you, there was another activity, sorry, just so that you know, level 1 versus level 3. Do sharks have a bad reputation? How can you inform people that the shark population is at risk? Here, they had to create a poster to inform the people about the sharks. It's a poster that they were going to make. And in the second one, do media give sharks a bad reputation? How can you inform people? Same question, but here they're creating a pamphlet instead of a poster. So in a pamphlet, there of course are going to be short paragraphs that they will be adding, whereas in a poster, it would just be like pictures with like little sentences, a couple of little sentences or whatnot, okay? And this is something that they could do as teams, of course, or it could be individual work, or it could be homework. You're the professionals, you decide. And in the teacher's guide, you of course have the explanations that match all of these different elements. Is that okay for everyone? Good. So this is a very good example, and you have other examples in here. But now what we're going to do is I'm going to challenge you guys to put what we have just seen into practice. So here is how it's going to work. I've chosen an activity that is called the Endangered BFF, or the Endangered Best Friend Forever. It's an activity that was created where we have a teacher's guide and we have a student's guide, and we have the activities are there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, share with you the teacher's guide, the learning guide, and we'll look at it together. And then I'm going to send you off into teams, and the objective is going to be with your team, take the activity that I have provided for you, which is at the 1 level, and add to it to make it higher level, or add to it to make it lower level. Decide what, brainstorm together. And when we come back as a group, you're going to present to us what you had and what you did, or what you chose to do to present to us the higher or the lower level of the activity that you have. Is that what I'm asking for? Is the information clear? I'm going to show you the guides, but you understand what I'm looking for. You have one activity to take, you make it higher or you make it lower. So if I start just by showing you, bear with me for one moment. Okay, hold on a sec here. I'm going to just open up. I have put the documents on my hard drive, okay? Not on my hard drive, on my drive, Google Drive. And I will give you access to them in a moment. So I'm going to share my screen again so that I can show you what we have in here. Okay, so when you open up, you will see that there is the you see my screen, everybody? There's the Endangered BFF, which is the teacher's guide. And there's one that is the student's guide, okay? When we click on it to open it, what I have done is I have only left in the guide. This is the training document, so it's the one for the students. And I have left in it 5 activities: team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4, team 5. We're not going to split up into 5 teams because we're only 15 people or 17 people. I'm going to make 3 teams. So we're going to use the blue, the green, and the pink. And each of these activities, if we go down, team 1, task 1, rate those animals. The activity is explained here. And then if we go back to the drive, we have the, is this the student's guide? I believe so. There's both the student's guide and the teacher's guide. Yeah, this is the student's guide. So team 1, task 1, this is the student's guide, okay? So even if you have all of the other activities, you concentrate on activity 1. Team 2 is gonna concentrate on activity 2, and team 3 is going to concentrate on activity 3. Please know there is no right or wrong answer here, right? You're just trying to brainstorm to see, okay, if I had this activity for my students, it's secondary 1 level, okay? And if I have this activity with my students, how will I be able to modify it to bring it to a higher level or a lower level if my students need it, okay? So right away in the chat, I'm going to share with you the link. You know what, and that, Karima, is part of what I wanted to do with this course. To me, yeah. It's so rich when you share between each other what your experiences are, and exactly. And I'm sure that you had fun with that. Excellent, excellent.
That's true. Good, excellent.
So I'm just going to give everybody a chance to slowly come back to this meeting. We have a couple of people left to come back, and I hope you enjoyed that second part of this presentation or this workshop. And it is a workshop, so that was part of the process. For this third part, what I would like to do is for each of the 3 teams, if you could present to us what you can show it to us if you want to, or you can just explain to us what the activity was that you originally had and what the discussion is that you had with your teams. We do have time. What I have planned is about 10 minutes per team. So we have time to actually have a discussion and speak about it. And then we'll do team 1, team 2, team 3. And then I would be curious to know what you guys think about this as a process with regards to what you have done. So team 1, we had Frank, Abdel, Ikram, Jeff, Rosa Maria. You had rate those animals. So go ahead, open your microphones, whoever wants to speak. If you could explain to us what the activity was, that would be really great. And what did you choose to do?
Okay, so we had a task. I don't know, maybe if you could share the student book, that would be good. So
you want me to share the student book? Sure,
yeah,
that's
if you
fine.
don't mind.
Give me a moment here. I'm going to open it up. Won't be long. I just want to make sure that I have the right one. Training document. So you had competency 1. Okay. I think I opened, just tell me if I have the right one or if it's the other one that you want. Is this one the one that you want?
This is the teacher's book. I was looking for.
Okay, so you want the other one? Okay.
Yeah.
This one here. This one here. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was the rate those animals. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so we had to look. It starts off with there's a deck of cards. Although in the teacher's guide or student's guide, whichever, the pictures are not on the document, so we couldn't really tell what they were.
Okay.
But they are supposed to be pictures of 10 different animals. There are 10 cards with 10 different pictures of 10 different animals. I don't know what animals were there, but quite a variety. Okay. And then, so for each, looking at the task as it is, it looks really long. If you're meant to do a discussion and each group they're divided into groups. They have to share their own ideas and opinions. They have to agree or disagree. They have to ask questions and they have to elaborate on ideas, all while placing 10 different animals in 10 different orders. So you have your 10 animals, and then on number 1, you have to place those animals in the order of most dangerous to least dangerous. Number 2, you have to replace them from which one you would most likely to have a pet as least likely. Number 3, which one you would like to spend the night in a cage with, or the least likely or most likely, fastest to slowest. Anyways, there's a whole huge list of them, and we just thought that the actual activity would take ages. So we kind of just took this activity and cut it up really into sort of 3 different sections. So the level 1 would share their ideas and opinions while also agreeing and disagreeing on only a select few of these, like fastest to slowest, most dangerous to least dangerous. Maybe, and I don't know, we did say 1 to 4, but most likely have a pet as least likely, just because they were more simple. And the second group, they would also have to share their ideas and opinions, the second level, but they would also ask questions about each one, and you can give them sort of more difficult ones, like which one would you like to encounter in our lifetime or least likely to encounter? Maybe that's even for 3rd level. You know, or sort of most likely to avoid extinction or least likely. So I don't know, the 1 to 10, we hadn't determined exactly which ones, but 1 to 10, we wanted to divide them up into different groups, easier and more simple ones. And then the most advanced group would have to elaborate on their ideas, which would be obviously way more to talk about. For the functional language. What's interesting
here is, yeah, the vocabulary that you chose based on the levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like fastest to slowest, it's simple to understand. But when you think about which would you likely do a fundraising to save or least likely, that's, you know, a bit more difficult. So And the functional language for the weaker ones, we wanted to put more, more vocabulary, actually more sort of, maybe even more. I think that X is faster than Y because something like that. Maybe just beef up the functional language for the level one. Yeah.
So pre-constructed sentences.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that was like pretty much how we went about it. If we look at it, we thought it was a lot of work to do all at once. But if you kind of divide it up, you can divide it into different levels.
Yeah, you see the suggested duration in the teacher's guide for this activity is about 40 to 50 minutes. So I agree with you that from what we see here, if they're going to put them in order for all of those elements, you're probably going to bust that 40 to 50 minutes easily. Yeah. But again, good example of 40 to 50 minutes, yes. But if we separate it into 3 different levels and you take a few sentences for each, that would be an excellent way of meeting your time frame, but still being able to do the activity for 3 levels. Super idea. Super idea. Excellent. Does anybody have anything else that they would add when you see this and you think of, does anything pop in your head? I like creativity. I like it when you pop up any idea that comes into your head. Does anybody see anything else?
We also mentioned, like quickly, stronger students would also have to explain their answer. So if you were to categorize a lion into the most dangerous, why would that be?
Yeah, excellent. Good point. Anything else?
Yes.
This
Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking that sometimes when we made the category of the animals, we may confuse being an animal dangerous or that I'm afraid of that animal. So if we have a picture of a spider, maybe I'm gonna say, okay, that's the most dangerous because I'm afraid of spiders. But so we need to take and guide students to say, okay, but look at them now. You are not talking about the animal itself. You're talking about how do you feel about that animal. So that differentiation could be something that we can do for advanced students.
Yeah.
Learning to know, okay, yes, the argumentation as we're saying is that we're going to require more argumentation in those little things about the animals.
Yeah. So the danger of the animal versus how you're afraid of the animal, that concept or that is important to explain. Yeah, good point. Good point. Excellent. Anything else from that team? Okay. Super interesting. Thank you, guys. Very interesting. So that would be a cool way of doing it. Team 2, we had Bessie, Karima, Nua, and Tame, I believe, and you guys had activity 2. Would you like me to share it, to leave it up there, or do you want to explain it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we had endangered vocabulary for you guys. Yeah. And this created a lot of discussion. So let's hear what you guys think.
Okay. Well, to start with, we can see that there are 4 instructions and a chart. Basically, the activity is that each student has 1 word, and they have like to walk around the classroom and find the right definition for the word they have. So what we decided to do, finally, but it's up to changes, of course, we can change it anytime. We decided to do a PowerPoint before the students embark in this activity. They have to do a PowerPoint that explain with pictures and words that we judge are difficult for the students. We show them pictures because some students are visual and they need to know what's the meaning of these words, because as we can see, there's a lot of the sentences are a bit long and they could be challenging. So we will start with a PowerPoint with pictures, words. We will discuss about what does it mean endangered and few words in that. And then we will keep the activity, like we will give each student a word, but strong students will have to look for more than one word. Not only just they will have to look for more than one word, probably 3 or 4 definitions of words. Also, we shouldn't forget about the functional language when they will be talking together. Yes, basically that's what we decided to do. And there is a matching. For some students, we will change the chart itself. We will just change how it looks like. For some students, we will ask them also to.
Oh, Noah, we lost your.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for some students, it will be it will be a matching exercise. Yeah, so yes, if I forgot something, just remind me, my dear team.
Also, we said, sorry, no, also we said that we'll give them the strips of, we could actually give them a picture with a word, and they could use that as for extra help. That's it.
So I like the idea here of you have the basic level, you have the picture with the word. You also have another level where you have matching. So you have the words with the definitions. And then we go to the third level, which is what you actually have here, where you have the list with the words and the definitions. Very interesting way of doing it. And we can clearly see that bottom, we're always visuals, right? When they have difficulties, when they have learning challenges, we're into giving them the vocabulary ahead of time, giving them the functional language that they're going to need to be able to do the activity ahead of time, and then building on that to get to the different levels. Very interesting, super good activity. Anything else?
Also, Caroline, for the functional language, there's actually like, I have these little cards that I found from our site years ago that Christine Baira had put, which is, I plastified them and it's there ready. So you could put them on the table.
Yes.
So they could actually have it in front of them in case they forget and what they have to do, which is also very helpful for lower.
Absolutely, absolutely. And most of those, Bessie, most of those cards that you're talking about, the functional language, the site that I showed you earlier, Les Communautés on the ESL website, a lot of those things that Bessie is talking about are there. And we also have, if you go to the ESL website, at the very bottom, I left the links. We had the link to the teacher induction website, and you have links to other websites as well, where you find all kinds of functional language posters, as you're mentioning. Récit des Langues has some as well. So know that you don't have to look 45 different places. If you go to the Communauté or if you go to our ESL website, you will find a lot of the tools that you need to be able to use for functional language and emotions and things like that. So there's a lot of tools on there that are available. I kept a lot of Christine, everything she's done is so, it's rich in usage. So we need to keep using those. That's a great example. Absolutely.
And if you plastify them, they last forever.
Absolutely, yeah. And even the students they can use, if you're teaching secondary 1, for example, if you create a little duotang for the students and they put them in there themselves, they can follow the student through the different years. It's very easy to be able to use them for Sec 1, 2, and 3 when they have a little bit more difficulties, and they can build on those. And what I find interesting also is if they use a specific level of functional language in secondary 1, and you bring them, you know, when we were saying pulling them towards the top, to see them graduate from the ones where they need the pictures and then the ones where they have just the sentence or the sentence in French and in English, it's interesting to see them, their level of pride when they do that, when they go to that second level. So excellent, excellent ideas. Anything else? I just wanted to mention to you, when you